Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the R Anime Podcast. And today, on this week's edition of the promised Neverweekly, Shocking 807. We love her dearly, but you know she really loves this show so much that she wanted to get the total immersion into it. So I decided to send her out to a farm to get harvested. So it's me, Faith Seal Taylor, hosting the episode today. Most likely she's probably just spending Valentine's Day with her loved ones. But, you know, we're here and we're happy that all you guys who are listening at home are here with us today, which includes 17 Riders. How you doing, fam?
Hey, pretty good. How are you doing?
Pretty great. We have Apex legend himself, Nasri.
Oh, no, that's not me.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Who do you main, by the way? Who do you main?
I just switch back and forth between Bloodhound and Mirage.
Ah, very nice. Ooh, so you'd be perfect in the Promised Neverland then, to try and escape and also hunt people down. And finally, we have Tactician Jack, who's back with a new mic, if I'm correct.
Yep.
Nice. I love it. Get your input and opinions crystal clear. And so let's start off then. With your opinions and your input for this episode. So Promised Neverland this week had episode 6 drop, I believe. What'd you guys think of the episode? And let's start off right off the bat where we left off last week with the door opening when Don and Gilda are in Mama's office. What'd you guys think of how that scene was handled?
I'm more curious how you think that scene was handled, given your interesting takes on the character involved.
Yo, so I saw that, I was like, no, Phil's evil.
100%. Is he more edible now or less edible?
Yo, Phil's gotta go. Phil has got to go.
Okay, but like, how do you feel about the whole Phil is like pulling all the strings theory after this with like the whole Minerva thing and like
what
his sus appearance in this ep?
Not only did Phil walk into them, but we can get to it later, or we could get to it now. The stamps with the owls, and Emma's like, and I think it was Norman was like, oh no, it was Ray was like, oh, I'm genuinely surprised, Emma, you were the one to find this, seeing as you don't read, which I feel like was a nice way of you don't know how to read. But then and she's like, oh no, Phil taught me. I'm like, yo, Phil's like 2 inches tall. How does he even have the eyes to read?
And yet here he is figuring out like Morse code.
In my avatar, he's got big eyes. He can read.
He does. Big blue evil eyes. What if Phil's the mastermind behind it? Phil is just like a demon in disguise. Convinced of it now. How did he know trains exist when he's on this farm?
Because the books in the library. They read books. That's how they
kid, how does he know how to read? How does he know how to read?
He was probably taught how to read by like Mama and the older kids.
I don't know. He's sus. I feel like now because I loved him too much in like episode 1, this is like partially like a protective measure so that if when he does get in, I don't feel as devastated that the one guy who loves trains like me bites the bullet train. But how about you guys? Actually,
okay. So in all seriousness, though, the whole cliffhanger on like the start of the episode.
Exactly. Yes. So, what do you guys think then? As especially 17, because you and Jack and Nos, have you read the manga?
I'm caught up. Yeah.
Okay. So, what did you guys think of how it was adapted? With the twist.
Yeah. So this was different, right? Like I don't remember it that well, but this felt very different from what I remembered.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember
how that scene was handled.
Last week or something, I went back and read the manga again because I had kind of forgotten what happened. But I thought that the cliffhanger at the end of last episode was the one that happened this episode where Mama walks in on them. So I thought, oh, it's Mama and they're going to have to hide and they're going to learn the truth or whatever. But then that wasn't what happened. And I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, we talked about this a bit last episode because we were kind of like, wait, what? How is this working? Because like we all were like, yeah, we kind of remember this like a cliffhanger scene like this, except for they were already like in the basement when it happened. So definitely.
So this was anime original.
Anime original Phil scare.
Yeah, I legitimately did not remember what happened. Like I felt like it was like my first time ever seeing it with that. And then when Phil popped out, I was like, those fuckers. They got me.
Yeah, because also Smurf was complaining last episode that they had like broken into the place and they hadn't, or I think it was Smurf, and then they hadn't like shown off the fact that like Dawn was skilled at like pickpocketing, which was like one of the things to like characterize him as like more of like a useful person. They were like, and Smurf, I think it was Smurf who was saying like, are they going to sideline like Dawn a lot more in this? And then no, it just like happened in this episode. They're just kind of like doing stuff differently again,
Dang,
which I don't really have a problem
readers.
with. Yeah.
No, but yeah, that's really interesting. Because I would not have guessed that it was anime original. In fact, it felt very natural within the anime.
Yeah, I think so. I like the liberties they're taking, like for the sake of pacing, which I think is what this was in terms of just like making sure like each episode kind of ends on like a sort of punchy note.
Speaking of pacing, though, we're like halfway through. It feels like, I mean, I don't remember exactly, but it feels like there's a lot more that they have to cover. I mean, I'd have to look back and like remember like to check what chapters to see if like there's actually a lot more or not. But I'm kind of like, oh, they're halfway there. Oh. I'm like really excited.
Yeah, I'm really hoping.
I forget when stuff happens, so it's like, when does this happen? When does that happen? I'm like, oh no, what? Do we have time? Even though like obviously they're gonna do it and it's gonna be fine, but it's just kind of like makes me anxious with the pacing, you know, like they're gonna get it all.
Yeah,
it's actually really interesting for me because I feel like I don't have problems with the. In fact, I'm the opposite way. I'm like, do they have enough to last 6 more episodes?
Yeah, they do.
They definitely do. Like so far, I'm really happy with the pacing, but it is something that like as a manga reader and knowing how much they're going to have to like jam into this, it does feel like a little bit tense watching them do it. But so far, I felt like they've executed it pretty perfectly.
Not like they're doing it badly necessarily, but it's just I don't know. I want to get to like the really like mega nut parts. You know, I want to get to those parts like now. I want to see them now, but I also don't want to see them, you know, because then they happen.
Just forgetting.
No, well,
Phil 2020.
I'm not going to confirm nor deny what exactly I am anxious about seeing and want to see and don't want to see, just because that means it happens. But you'll see.
Okay. Well. That's if my eyes don't get in first. They might. They're delicacy in certain cultures. So we had the initial sneak in scare, and then we do see Dawn getting the pickpocket on Mama, and for me, I hated that. I was like, oh man, Dawn, you are so dumb, so dumb.
Right.
So how did you guys feel about that scene when they eventually go into the office? They go down into the secret room and then the basement. Did you feel that was handled? Because the tension and the way that was handled seemed very. I know a lot of people have there are debates of whether it's thriller or horror, but that particular scene had a lot of fear and horror elements to it and a lot of tension building up.
Right.
Yeah, I thought it was really good visually. Like it was like, yes, like this episode overall was like, yes, this is what I want from an adaptation. I want it to like look like this. Maybe not with the exact, because the CGI was it was good, but I don't know if I really liked kind of the
like with the camera angle?
I like the camera angles and stuff, but just kind of like the CGI doors and stuff. It kind of like, it looks kind of funny to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being like super nitpicky. But like overall, like this episode was how I want an adaptation of a manga I like to look like.
Yeah, and in particular, like I thought it did a really great job of being scary without like showing anything, right? Because like when they're down in like the basement and stuff like that, they're just kind of like looking at stuffed animals, and the scary thing is them drawing conclusions from seeing a bunch of like toys,
right?
Which was handled really well, I thought. So it did a great job of kind of like subtle like atmosphere building and horror in that way.
Also, I was gonna say that like the tension like felt even higher just by virtue of the fact that it was Dawn and Gilda and not like one of the main three, because because with those three, like I mean, there's been like some very like tense moments, but like you know that they kind of know their stuff, and Dawn and Gilda are like complete wild cards as opposed to that.
Yeah, you can sort of count on the main three. Like if one of them gets screwed over, it's a big deal. Versus like Dawn and Gilda, like every moment is tense because you don't really like know where they fall.
And And also, we're not so far removed, especially as anime only viewers. We're not so far removed from when we thought Dawn and Gilda might be traitors.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's like how much plot armor do they actually have? Yes, this is a Shonen Jump property, but their names aren't in the title. So
No, none of their names are in the title.
in fact, only The Promised Neverland is in the title. So we really
have a
don't
title.
know their fates and how they might end up. And given that, how did you guys feel that Dawn especially was handled and characterized this episode? Because he seemed to take a much larger presence on the stage.
I liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm personally a fan. Also, what this kind of means for the main cast, because this really is sort of the moment where, like, Norman and Emma kind of get their actions thrown back in their face, and Ray gets an "I told you so" moment of, like, we should have told him the truth from the first place, guys. Come on. And it, like, stems from Norman and Ray's kindness, but, like, you can see how, from, like, Dawn's perspective, like, Emma doesn't have, like, any amount of faith in them, so her kindness is seen more as, like, pity, which I thought was really cool and really well done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for
So yeah, I thought Dawn was particularly, like, sympathetic in that scene, and it did a really great job of kind of characterizing, like, our main trio as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really liked kind of the emotional climax of the episode with them outside and lanterns, even though it was like, what if Mama looks out the window and sees you guys? She knows something, but, like, anyways, other than that part, but, like, it was a really good emotional kind of climax, because before the episodes had been kind of more the climaxes with, like, tension and learning things and etc. But this time it was like an emotional moment between the characters, which was different, and I liked it. I mean, yeah, it was good.
Yeah, pretty much agreed on all those things. I know, like, a lot of people were, like, getting, like, super angry at Dawn after the last episode, but I think this one, like, definitely put his, like, thought process or his feelings, like, way more into perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I definitely had that same, like, thought process through the manga, where you're just, like, reading through and you're like, Dawn and Gilda, you fucking dumbasses, and then you get to the point of where, like, Dawn actually confronts the main group, and you're like, you know what? That's actually kind of fair, though. Like, you're still kind of dumb, but, like, that's very fair.
I don't know. I was like, Phil is still number one on my to eat list or to be eaten list, but Dawn is, like, right behind him, to the point where I was like, man, you know what would make this episode perfect? If, like, they wake up the next morning and they're like, I don't see Dawn anywhere. And then Mama's like, yeah, Dawn got shipped out yesterday. So sad how that happened.
Oh my god, Fate, you're a monster. You're the real demon here.
I just want Mama to win. Oh, so speaking of Mama and Dawn, so Mama knows, we assumed that her office has been broken into and compromised, and then she has that conversation with Ray at the end, right before the episode ends. So what did you guys feel about that conversation that Ray had with her?
I'm trying to remember if I remember anything from the manga about that conversation.
I think that conversation is pretty much the same thing that happened in the manga.
Yeah,
just from my recollection, it's about the same.
I can't remember if, like, she's lying or not.
Yeah, so I don't really remember either. And again, like, oftentimes you don't see entirely into the characters' heads, and you're kind of left to, like, guess backwards once you know what's going on. So a lot of this stuff is kind of hard even for us source readers. But I really liked how that conversation was handled. I think I think there's a lot of, like, mystery here in terms of, like, how much does Mama really know about, like, what Ray is trying to do. Because like, there's that moment at the end where she seems kind of suspicious, but at the same time, like, it could easily be something else. And I couldn't really tell you which one it is. But yeah, it's that scene was handled really well in terms of just, like, being a really tense, calm conversation. I also like the little touch of Ray not saying why he was punched, but saying enough to kind of, like, lead Mama to that conclusion to enhance his story. I feel like that highlights just how fucking clever Ray is.
Yeah.
I'm still surprised that Mama trusts Ray so much. Like, what has Ray done over those 6 years to
Well,
earn her undying trust like this.
not spoilers, but do you remember in back when Krone was introduced and she said that Ray's weakness was that he was too quick to give up? So I think Mama is just kind of assuming that it's kind of the status quo for him, that she knows what he's like, that he's quick to give up, and she thinks that Ray knows that Mama always wins or whatever. Like that's so I think she's just confident in Ray's kind of cowardliness in that way.
Also, I think in last episode, if I'm correct, Ray says to Mama, so it's unclear if this is like actually the case, but at least like Ray thinks this, like, why did you bring Krone in? It's to like watch me basically, right? And like, why the fuck would you do that? Because I've been faithful to you. So like at the very least, Ray seems to think that Mama doesn't entirely trust him.
Okay. Those are all really good points. I did remember the Krone talking about Ray's file and saying he was quick to give up. But I thought that might be the initial reason, but still why? Because he's not quick to give up at this, unless he's like a triple agent for some reason.
Right.
He was actually the traitor all along.
Yeah, I think what 17 said kind of also just goes into making that kind of conversation between Ray and Mama like that much more tense, because like there's always a point where you're wondering like, when is this going to go wrong? Or like, when is Mama going to find out? And then she just like drops that stone cold stunner at the end.
From the top rope too.
Yeah.
Just like
RKO out of nowhere.
With the people's elbow. And we are of course talking about the fact that Ray is the next one to get shipped out, according to Mama. And he seems happy about it.
Yup.
He kind of seems like, I know he already kind of looks like Sasuke, but he gives me that Sasuke like emo, edgy boy, goth
I was
vibe.
just thinking that too. I was like, he's like totally emo. He's just fine with dying like that. He's like, yeah, bring it on.
Ray is the edgiest motherfucker, and normally I feel like characters this edgy I end up getting annoyed by, but I love Ray. Ray is so great.
What about you, Nas? What do you think of him?
I love Ray too. I mean, I like all the main three. Ray's probably my favorite of the three, but that's also just being caught up with it. But like even in this first arc, Ray was always like the most fascinating to me.
Yeah, it's super hard to pick a favorite out of the main three. Personally, I kind of like lean towards Emma, but because of stuff that hasn't happened yet. But you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who's my favorite. Like even taking into account the entire thing, it's like, I don't know. I guess I'll go with the like easy answer and say Mama, because I want her to cut my teeth and tell me that everything's gonna be okay.
What a great mother. I also am really glad that you guys are on this podcast as source readers, because I just keep thinking like, oh, maybe Nas is the same way, and he's like, oh, like maybe my favorite's different because he also wants them to get eaten. So like to me, maybe like things that happened in the manga, like Emma getting eaten. But it's really interesting to see how they set up. I do like the different dynamics that they have between the three of them, and how different they talk between each three. And I believe it's Orson Scott Card wrote this once in writing about writing, and he says the difficulty in writing like groups where there's more than two people is that if you have A, B, and C talk differently when there's A and B, when there's B and C, when there's A and C, and when A, B, and C are all together. So you basically have to write like 4 different personality styles.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're getting to see that really we've already seen that a lot with Norman and Ray.
Mm-hmm.
But we kind of get a sense of it between Emma and Ray. And that is something I want to see more, because we've seen Emma and Norman talk before.
Yeah,
But the way that Emma and Ray talk, I feel like Emma becomes a lot more pragmatic, and she's like, you don't really think that Ray's gonna let us like go and take everyone, right? Like I'm pretty sure she says something to that effect, like understanding that Norman's like, Ray's not gonna have anything.
Sure that like Ray's okay with taking everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, like when he first says that he's going to take everyone, like she borderline like threatens the shit out of him. So
Yeah, she's like, I'm gonna break your fucking wrist if you.
And that voice. Wait, I can never hear that scene differently now. But now, because of your avatar, I'm imagining Phil saying that.
Phil, it's gonna cut
God
a
damn
bit.
Not only is Phil the smartest of any of them, he's also the strongest. Like
Most ruthless.
Phil's
actually the demon. Yeah, I'm telling you, Phil's actually the demon. That's the whole point. But yeah, there was a lot happening this. And so the scene with Emma and Ray happens in the forest, right? When she almost breaks his fingers.
Right.
We have another huge scene happen in the forest this time.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
With Sister Krone. And you guys, what do you guys think about that scene?
I thought, like, wait, so she was like all dancing around and stuff. I was like, that scene, I didn't remember that. Like, she seems much more flamboyant in the anime, and I'm kind of like, what? I'm just like, where's that coming from?
I don't have many gripes about the adaptation. Her flamboyance is like one of the things that I'm like actively a little bit not here for. I think, yeah, she's been pretty hit or miss for me in the anime, which is a little unfortunate. But I'm still like hyped for this moment, and like it was a good cliffhanger to leave off on. I'm just a little bit sad that she's so, I guess, just like extra. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I don't know. I like her, I guess. Like, well, I liked her in the manga, but in the anime, like, I enjoy her, like, I guess, antics as like kind of a, not a foil, but like a contrast to the way Mama's just like so subtle about everything. But
Right.
not so much when it's like a straight up like detriment to like belief in something that's happening, like the conversations that she has with herself when she's just screaming at the top of her lungs in her room.
Right. Well, that's only happened twice, and they've kind of like stopped doing that. So I'm hoping that that's done with, because that's definitely like the worst for me.
Yeah.
Like her just kind of being like a little bit over the top doesn't normally bother me, although like I'm paying attention for it now, like after those screaming in the room scenes, which
What
I
I'm
was not a
wondering
fan of.
is like, who was like, yes, she should be a mama in training? That's what I'm wondering. Like, who signed off on that? And
I mean,
are there like psychological tests they can do? Because I don't think she would pass them.
I don't think it's a psychological test, but you see how big she is. That's that's someone who's eaten a couple children.
Well, I mean, like, talking to the doll thing, like the doll's real. It's like she's kind of messed up in the head, and I wonder if the people in charge know about that or not.
Yeah, well, I think she's kind of supposed to be a little bit fucked in the head, so I don't have like that much of a problem with that. It's just a matter of like how openly fucked in the head she can be sometimes.
Yeah, maybe they're like, I don't know. Well, she's useful. Maybe they'd be like, well, she won't be a mom. Like, I don't know. Maybe they're planning on like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Never mind.
I think it's more interesting when it kind of like comes off as like a scare tactic to the kids, like when they're playing that game of tag. I remember the first time I read through that, like I was like, oh my god, this woman is a monster. But like, yeah, and then when she does it with herself, it's like kind of less interesting, I guess. But yeah, when it's like used to intimidate, it's way better.
Yeah, like the scene when she's interrogating like Gilda was really good too.
Yeah.
But yeah, what did you think of this scene, Fate?
For me, it was they're kind of fucked. Like they can't say no to her. They're like in a no-win situation, and it's so strange. It's like, why is she saying that? First of all, why is she offering to group up with them in the first place?
Right. Yeah, what are your theories as to like what shakes out of this? Actually, I'm curious for the not source.
Yeah, I don't think I can really comment on anything right now because it's too spoilery. But I want to hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
So the serious theory I have is that Phil is actually the mastermind behind everything and has sent Sister Krone to send them an offer that they can't refuse to bring him under his subjugation, as he endeavors to lead them upon a journey to eat everyone else in the farm. And then grow his strength tenfold. No, but actually, I think it's because Sister Krone wants to be a mom, but also despises Mama.
Mhm.
Like hates her, absolutely despises her. And I think because of that, she's willing to. She knows, like in her head, if she reports these kids, Mama's probably gone, and then she'll probably become a mama. But if she can get these kids on her side, then reemerge as the sole victor, eliminate Mama entirely, then it goes from like a probably to a definitely. So I
That
think
makes
that's the risk she's playing. So instead of like going for like, oh, like if I don't do anything, let this play happen, or just like report the official, it's like 70% chance. But to add that 30% chance to make it 100%, she's also adding a 30% risk of if she gets manipulated by these kids, which, we already saw happen once in the tag game.
Right.
Mhm.
Yes, Cat Yam HD. Phil must reach his final form. This isn't even Phil's final form.
So yeah, Tay, are you expecting like the kids to play along with this then?
I think they will. And I think it's actually gonna. I mean, I think it's just gonna backfire really bad on Sister Krone. I think Ray is gonna be like, yeah, and then just like tell Mom, be like, hey, Sister Krone found us. She's trying to loop us into her side. And then she'll be like, fine, whatever. Oh, but Ray isn't there, right? Because Ray's talking with Mama, and it was just the four of them: Don, Gilda, Norman, Emma.
Right.
Yep.
Oh, maybe Krone was
Oh,
like waiting. I wonder if she knew or could tell or something.
when Ray wasn't there. Interesting. Then I could see a scenario where, because we saw Norman cover all his bases, right, once before with the figuring out who the informant is, I could see him pulling off something similar where like they start talking, it cuts, they leave the forest, Ray finds them, they're all shook, and like Norman tells this like version of the story that sounds believable but is slightly off.
Ooh, that'd be cool.
And
I legit don't
different
remember
from Don, Gilda, and Emma.
I don't remember exactly how next episode is going to play out, but that'd be really cool.
Yes, thank you. I am glad you thought so.
Yeah, that is a nice theory.
Thank you.
It would be
I
even
think it's
cooler. What if they were all just dead and Phil was standing over their bodies?
Just waiting for that into episode twist.
Oh my gosh, that would have been
just piled
actually
them all up to make like a booster seat, and he's just sitting there waiting for Ray.
A train. He got his train of dead bodies.
Yeah, I could have used a rope, but I escape alone. Phil is going to use the bodies to get out.
It's like the human centipede, but a train instead, and he's just gonna ride it. Just force them to eat coal, power them through. Oh man. Oh god. Oh no! Why, Phil? Why would you do this?
No.
Phil is just such an interesting character. Because, oh man. So let's track back a little bit to Minerva, William Minerva, I believe the name was.
Right.
William Minerva.
Yes. William
Minerva.
Shit. Phil is only one syllable. It's also one syllable? Morse. Phil code.
God damn it.
But yeah, so what you guys think of how that was portrayed in this episode?
I really, really like that part. Like in the moment in the manga, it was just like a kind of like cool reveal, but like the way that they like went through it in this one with like the direction and everything too.
And the visuals, like they're showing the symbols behind.
Yeah,
that
the
was
top
really
down
cool.
when they were over the farm symbol.
Yeah,
and I love how the music was the same, and it was like at the same time as the Dawn and Gilda thing was happening, and it like cut between them, and you're like, because you're like learning stuff, and you're like afraid, and it's like that was good direction.
Yeah, it's really cool because like it's almost the exact same content, if I remember right, as the manga reveal, but here it felt a lot more like exciting and intense than it did even in the manga, which thanks for that.
For sure.
One of the things that came to mind, and this might not be a reference that everyone makes, and there's slight spoilers, but the game The Last of Us, there's a moment where one of the main characters is like downed and like suffers a pretty severe wound. And like you're like, oh shoot, I really want to know what happens. But then it cuts and you play as one of the other characters, and you have to like forage in the forest, and you're just walking around, and they're not talking about what just happened. And so but there's like a set amount of time that has to pass, and you have to do these things before you can find out what happened. And for me, watching the anime, if it happened in the manga like this, I feel like I could just be like rapidly hitting the like swapping pages or hitting the arrow key just to like, okay, fine, whatever. I can read more closely, but just what happens.
That's how I was when reading it, like in general. Like I was just like, okay, page, read it, page, next page, next page, next page, and I was like.
But with the anime, it really forces you to watch. Like, I guess you could watch at like 1.25 speed if you want to. Like,
You're a monster.
Like only villains do that. Don't do that. So most people won't be doing that. So like you're forced to watch through, and like you are forced like real time as these kids are going through, and like every second is excruciating. Every second is excruciating to us because we're not seeing what's happening to Don and Gilda in the basement.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, I thought that was really interesting. And so they mentioned promise, and the book of mythology is Peter Pan's not a myth really, but I was thinking like maybe
there was 2 books, wasn't there?
Yes,
there was like an adventure book and then the mythology book.
Right.
That Ray didn't quite understand.
Phil would have.
So Phil probably wrote it. I mean, these are all Phil's previous books. They all belong to Philly and Minerva.
Yeah, that would make sense. Phil's the only character who could write something too high IQ for Ray. Checks out.
To be fair, you need a really high IQ to be Phil.
Yeah, you need to get like really high scores. I don't think he's getting full scores like the rest of them, but I mean, he's also what, 4?
A tiny baby. Yeah, is he?
Yeah, so he's getting really high scores for his age. I bet by the time, like if he was like 12, he'd be like smarter than all 3 of them.
He'd be the one writing the tests.
Yeah, true. I mean, he's 4 years old and cracking Morse code in like books for like cuz.
I know. The thing that really interests me is that you guys bring up the potential aspect to him, right? The fact that he has so much potential and he's like so smart for his age. The one thing that always brings to mind, and Austin, you might appreciate this, is that in sports a lot of time you always think about like wasted potential, or like there's the story of Len Bias, the old Celtics Boston Celtics player from the University of Maryland who died like very young.
Yeah.
And so it's like part of that actually raises the stakes of this for me, because like Phil is so smart that I'm like, man, if he dies, that's such a terrible loss for humanity. Like, especially if this group wants to survive out in the wild. Like, getting Phil to an age where he can be like of use and like 11 years old, even 11 years old.
He's already of use, isn't he?
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
even at the level of use that the current 11, 12-year-olds are at.
I just want to take a minute to appreciate Tay's character arc throughout Neverweekly, going from eating Phil to Phil is the best of us.
Phil, eat Phil.
Eat Phil, but also
Phil
eat Phil if he's evil.
For humanity.
There are 3 versions of Phil to my mind. So like my version of Promise. So just like the Promise Neverland has 3 main characters, Promise Neverweekly has 3 Phils. There's the evil Phil, who is creating a train of human bodies upon which he will feast. There's the innocent, sweet Phil who just wants to go on a train one day, and that's the Phil that's like, we're sure is a traitor. We don't fucking believe that Phil. And then there's the Phil who has like all this potential and hope, and it's gonna be like really sad if when he gets eaten by a monster as he's running through the forest, as his chubby little 4-year-old legs can't keep up.
Oh, that image!
Very succulent little drumsticks for the demons.
Okay, so like speaking of small children like running away and getting eaten by demons, how do you feel about like everyone getting out, Tay? I'm just curious if like the
what a segue, by the way.
Yeah.
Can I just do my introduction for everything ever in life? It's like, oh, Mr. Taylor, I see you have a reservation for 2. By the way, speaking of tiny children trying to run away from I don't think it's feasible, and I've said it from the start. First of all, I think just the physical nature of them having to sprint and like kids having small legs, they're not gonna be able to outrun things. And we saw that already when they had that game of tag against Sister Krone, and Emma had to carry them.
Yeah.
And then Sister Krone was like, "You're going to get tired. You know, if you carry two other bodies, you're gonna get tired. You have to rest, and you're not gonna be able to do this. Just drop them and go." And I feel like Emma won't want to drop them, but she's going to have to. So I'm just really looking forward to the moment when she has to abandon them. And like we see like an image, like I can already imagine the manga panel. It's like a small, tiny, like square, like a jagged cut in like the bottom right corner of a page, and you just see like someone's like face and like blood behind them as they're getting like slowly eaten up. I guess I don't know how demons eat. They might be more civilized. Because Connie was dead, right? So maybe they kill them first. They don't eat them alive. So maybe you know, I don't want to put on assumptions for these demons. These demons are characters too. They should be awarded the full benefit of the doubt for their potential humanity. I mean, the one time they did have soup, they were using utensils. So maybe these demons are actually very civilized and have excellent table manners. So maybe they just like round them up and like put them down like in their sleep, like sing a lullaby, and then they feast on them.
Connie's face. Did she look like she died in her sleep?
Well, she did have that like pretty flower sticking out of her, so they care about presentation at least.
Yes, the plating was excellent. You know,
Oh my god!
you could the umami was just
cannibals.
The umami was.
I love how Tay is like really concerned with not like misrepresenting the table manners of man-eating demons.
Hey, look, it's Valentine's Day. People are going to all these fancy dinners and dates. Like,
oh yeah, so speaking of Valentine's Day, what's you guys' favorite toxic Neverland ships?
Me and Mama.
Phil,
that's my shit.
Phil and the blood of his enemies.
Okay, but for real, I don't know.
Were you gonna say Ray Mama and then you backed out?
No.
I feel like you were about to say Ray Mama and then you backed out.
No, I was considering Norman and Emma or Gilda and Emma, because Norman and Emma is like cute and it's like got stuff that we like seeing and it's cute and Norman likes her. But on the other hand, there's Gilda and Emma and they had that like scene together and with like the hand holding and it was like yes. So I don't know.
Confirmed, like confirmed Gilda's closer to getting it than Norman. Like that's definitely the case.
Yeah.
Mine
I feel like oh sorry.
No, go. Finish off.
I feel like Emma is kind of like she's being crushed on maybe, but that's not even anywhere near where she's thinking.
It's like bottom of the priority list.
So I guess what I really want is a love triangle between Gilda and Norman, and they're like they both want Emma. That's what I want out of the ships. It's like I don't want just one. I want both.
Speaking of love triangles, our anime and good friend of the podcast Serendipity is hosting a Chihaya Furu rewatch, and there's love triangles and maybe even cannibals in Chihaya Furu. We'll not deny or confirm that there are cannibals and love triangles. Well, there's definitely love triangles, but cannibalism.
Show. What?
Yeah, there's actually a very tension-filled scene about eating.
Okay.
And finishing off what someone began to eat.
I don't remember this at all.
Ooh, it's
Cannibal shoujo sounds really unique. I might be here for this.
Oh, it's actually a josei, so it's a cannibal.
Oh,
josei.
is it? Okay.
So it's even better now.
Yeah, true. I'm hyped.
Ma says Neverweekly is just a food cast in disguise.
Yeah, he's not. Well, every our anime podcast is just a food cast in disguise. We're not actually here to talk about anime.
Humans food?
I mean,
we know fish are friends, not food, but are humans friends, not food?
Humans are definitely food, not friends. If we're going by these podcasts, like.
But my toxic ship is Norman, right? Like, oh my gosh, I love that ship so much because they remind me of Gon Killua, and
okay, I can see that.
The Gon Killua ship was
kind of see it, but I don't feel it.
Not help.
Yeah, I definitely don't like feel it. Like Gon Killua is a legit ship, honestly, but
I just that scene where they're talking after the Ray's status is revealed, and then like Norman does or Ray does the hey shoulder touch from from Spider-Verse. He's like, hey,
So you
like,
know.
if you do this, like, you're not lying to me, right? There was so much tension there. I was just like, oh my gosh, just be 11-year-olds together already. Just like, oh.
What's that supposed to mean?
They're 11 years old, so I'm not gonna imply anything besides the fact that they should be 11-year-olds together.
Okay, we'll leave that to your imagination.
Yes. Eat people together. That's obviously it's in line with the show. Eat Phil, like have a
they
nice
will
romantic
eat
dinner.
Him.
Some people like suckling pig. There's suckling Phil.
All right, Tay.
What is this?
Okay.
But
What is this? Is this a Shota hentai?
I genuinely really like their dynamic because it and then there was like the reversal of like, oh god, how do I put this in who's above the other?
Which one's the top?
I did not say that. I did not call one of them that. I said who is above and who is below. Because
we know what you meant.
It felt like Norman was above throughout, and like he had the high ground over Ray. But after that reversal, it feels like their roles have switched, and now Ray is above and he has the high ground over Norman. And I really like that switch dynamic. Was really cool to see. So
yeah.
But yeah, also the fact that they like they know each other so well that they both trust, and because like the reason why Norman suspected Ray is because he trusted Ray to make the optimal move for himself, which would be to be an informant.
Yeah.
He was like, the logical thing is for Mama to reach out to Ray, and then Ray to be a spy on us. That's just like, that just makes sense.
Yeah, that would be like worst case scenario for them.
And best case scenario for them.
Mama is smart, so
Yes.
she's already optimized her best case scenario. So he's got to kind of work from a situation where Mama's already capable of creating her own best case scenario.
Okay, I just want to highlight this. Katyab HD said, "What is Tay watching?" And Maz responds, "Hell's Kitchen." That was good.
By the way, if you guys ever want to join in on the chat, we always do take guests from our Discord server. You can join it in the link below, and we are always reading chat throughout the podcast as well, because we are streaming these live. So always thank you again for listening in live. And actually, there is a really interesting comment by someone named Rishado Risu the God, who says, Ray isn't edgy or emo, in my opinion. So first, Naz, I want to hear your toxic ship, and then we'll go to that comment. Because Naz, after now my toxic ship has been thrown into the wind. I can't let you off scot free.
I have legitimately never thought about this.
Well, you gotta make one up now. You gotta.
I gotta say, like, after you mentioned it, I feel like the most toxic ship is the Mama Ray ship. I like that. That is some A+ toxicity.
That's super
what
toxic,
about okay?
I was gonna say Mama Krone because it's pretty one-sided in two different ways, kind of.
True.
Oh, I don't want to think about Krone like that.
Oh no! The little stuffed doll that she had.
Krone X doll.
Doll X little bunny.
Oh, damn.
Dawn X Connie, if you're gonna do the toxic ships.
No, Dawn X Gilda. Wait, Connie before or after she's been flowered? Or wow!
Oh my god! You could think that. That wasn't even a possibility in my mind. Oh my god!
You know, I am just realizing
that's bad
that they
for
are
so
flowering.
many reasons. That was like a Tay level pun too.
Before she's flowered. Oh my god. I
didn't think about that as I was saying it. you know what? I'm gonna mute myself for a little bit. I'm just gonna reflect on all the things I've said on this spot. You know, I am a professional human being, guys.
Okay, for the record, so everyone is aware, this pod got bad enough that Kay is reflecting on his actions. That is where we hit.
Oh man. So instead of reflecting on my actions, how about we reflect on the first 6 episodes, the first half so far, and how you feel like the adaptation has gone with those episodes?
For me, like I think my favorite episodes, like from an adaptation standpoint, because I was always gonna love the actual content of it because like it is one of my favorite manga. But I think this episode and episode 1 have probably been my 2 favorites from an adaptation standpoint. So
yeah, I believe that. I haven't been ranking them, but I thought the visuals for this one were definitely the most cool. I don't know, not like cool. I really liked the camera work and the angles and the editing and everything done. So
yeah, I liked all the cuts too. This episode from like going like between like tables and walls and stuff like that, and switching from one room to the other. That was really cool.
Yeah, this episode was really good. My favorite episode is actually still last episode. I just thought that was like really hype and really well done. And like there was so much like awesome stuff that was kind of revealed. I felt like it was just executed really well. But yeah, overall, like I've liked every single episode of this adaptation. It's been doing a fantastic job.
For me, I said this before, I was really nervous where like episode 6 through 9, 6 through 10 were going to be like, because I feel like in like mystery or like thriller shows, that's always the part you have to be worried about,
right?
Because it's like
it hits a wall, kind of.
Yeah, it hits a wall because like you can't keep ratcheting up the stakes because then the mysteries feel, how do you say, like the stakes don't feel high. You're like, oh, this is just gonna get wrapped up in 2 episodes. But if it takes 12 episodes to wrap up a mystery, you're just like, come on, guys, like it's not gonna take you that long. And that actually was one of the reasons I was nervous, because as much as I love the director Mamoru Kanbe and what he did for Sono no Woto Sound of the Sky, he also did Perfect Insider, and Perfect Insider was a novel that adapted into a one-core TV show, and that was a thriller mystery.
I've not heard great things about that.
It was one of the worst shows I've ever seen. It was genuinely so bad. There's a point at which like they get chased by bread in a dream sequence, and
what?
it was just like a really, really weird thing. The reveal is really dumb. Everyone like figured out what had happened by episode 4, and yet like the characters, like all the viewers had, and the characters themselves don't realize until like episode 12, the finale, and they're like, oh gosh, all along we didn't see the elevator thing. And everyone's like, they like shot the elevator thing, like blew it up with the arrows. We saw the thing like episode 1, like we could tell it was a pretty big hint. We all knew that was one of the clues. No, Maz. Maz says I've heard good things about that. Nas said I have not heard good things about that, if I remember correctly. Or maybe I misheard you, Nas.
No, the only person I've seen have an opinion on it is Smurf, who gave it like a 3. So
yeah, I have it as a 3 as well. The OP was actually really good, and that's
primarily that's the Kataboon one, right?
Yeah. So the OP was great. So and I haven't seen Elfen Lied actually. Have any of you?
No.
Oh, interesting. I've actually been considering watching it because I've been enjoying Promised Neverland so well. And Nas, you brought up the direction, the camera angles, like the spinning shot they had between Norman Ray and Emma.
Yeah.
I just remembered something cool about the visuals was like there was a lot of like circling going on and circles, which can connect with the Morse code. But to me, it also felt like it was kind of showing that like they're being like circled in on, like, you know, like maybe like they're being like, you know, like hunting, like you want to like circle. That's what it felt like to me. Like they're kind of being like circled in on, you know. That's what it's like with the circling. And I keep saying circles, but like where like they're getting like more trapped, and then with the connection with the Morse code, there was a lot of like circular visuals.
I think it also fits with some of the other directing choices throughout the episode, where I feel like there were kind of a lot of shots, like earlier on, I guess, in the episode that were from further out, and then as you get like further into the episode, there are a lot more like up close shots of the character. I can't say that 100%, but I like seem to recall that.
Definitely gonna think I was gonna say that because it felt like with those like early shots, they were kind of like low angle too, so it like felt like it was like something like lurking or like just watching them, and the start like slowly kind of closing in, and then by like the emotional climax with Don and Gilda is kind of like when it all came full circle, I guess, to bring it back to circles. But
just to circle the wagon one more time. I really do love the choices and the way they make the atmosphere feel so claustrophobic. And just the way that they like it might be in a it might be in another show that's like in the hands of a worse director, or maybe not an experienced director. You might be like, oh, you might chalk it up to like they didn't know what they were doing. It was just a lucky happenstance. But like the episode before where there's the grandfather clock in the room and then the camera swings in time with the grandfather clock between Norman and Ray, I think kind of proves that Mamoru Kanbe has the directing chops to pull it off.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So, but yeah, so with that in mind, how are you guys feeling about the second half of the Promise Filler Weekly? I mean, Neverweekly.
What do you mean?
Like where we think the second half's gonna go, or like how?
Yeah. Are you excited for? So like I know a lot of times when adaptations. So you guys mentioned pacing earlier, and you were sure. Like, do you trust that the adaptation's gonna do the pacing well? Do you think that they're going? So like you guys mentioned that Smurf last week was mentioned that Dawn's pickpocketing skills were on display, but were displayed a week later this week. So does that instill like trust in you that they're going to do this adaptation correctly? Because we've been burnt by good adaptations before through the first 7-8 episodes that just fall apart in the last 4.
Right.
Yeah. I think that it will be okay because I think the production schedule is good enough that the visuals will be okay, because like episode 3 or whatever, I think, was animated all by one guy, which you can only do if like the production schedule is like pretty good.
Wait, what? All of episode 3 was done by one guy?
There was one episode that was like animated by one guy, I think. I remember reading that.
Damn.
What?
So
man, I'm gonna.
That can only happen with like really good production schedules. So, I mean, obviously, it might end up being like a direction issue or something, but I doubt it because the direction's been so good already, and they've had time to like finesse it. Right. So I would be really surprised if it kind of got bad in the second half.
Like, I don't want to jinx it, but like so far it's been done well enough. Like with like the biggest gripes I have are like with like some of Krone's characterization, and that's like literally it. I mean, obviously, like we can go into like the more nitpicky stuff, but like I'm pretty confident in this adaptation because it seems really confident in itself in a lot of ways that I really appreciate. It's not just like directly adapting the manga; it's taking liberties and doing what it can with anime, which is great. Yeah. And so, as well as just kind of like not being afraid to shuffle things around and all of that sort of thing. So I'm really, really hopeful about what's to come.
Yeah.
Yeah, same. This episode, especially for me, I think like it was like this weird thing where like I was watching it and like it felt like I was watching it for a super long time because it was so jam-packed, but like it still felt like super smooth, and it just kind of like still went by. I guess it's really hard to describe, but like it just felt like a really nicely paced episode, despite there being like so much stuff back to back to back between like the secret room and Minerva and the apology and then the conversation between Ray and Mama and then Krone at the end. Like even with all that, like it still felt like super well paced.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm hopeful for the second half, especially. Like I going into it because like I didn't watch like Darling in the Franxx, even though I didn't hear the greatest things about it. The only other Cloverworks thing I had watched prior was the Persona 5 anime, which was
to fail, I think.
It was less than ideal, that situation, but Yeah, but this is like pretty much better than anything I would have expected.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
that's
me
high
too.
praise to hear. You don't
kind of
normally hear. Mhm.
I kind of have a rocky history with A1/Cloverworks, you know. I mean, I know it's a big studio and like freelancers and stuff, but I was kind of like, I don't know how I feel about them adapting Neverland. But then it was really good, so it's like, okay, I'm happy with this. I don't complain about the studio or anything.
Yeah, it's I was also concerned about it too until because A1 is so rarely like they don't really have much of a staff. Most of
Yeah.
it is just freelancers and people they can get on hand or like people who are they're friends with that will chip in. But with Mamoru Kambe, who had worked with A1 Pictures for Sound of the Sky, I was really excited for that. And then I mentioned it a lot, but Sound of the Sky's episode 7 to me is one of my favorite episodes in anime, actually.
Gotcha.
And that was also an original work, so it's a little different there, but it basically lets me know that he's like, it gives me the faith that he's going to adapt or handle the second half very well and in a still tension-filled, suspenseful way.
Mm-hmm.
And so my final question before I let you guys go to spend your Valentine's days, however you'd like, with your waifus and husbandos respectively, or together. So actually that's actually where I want to take this, which is with Apex Legends dropping. If there was a battle royale between all the members, all the children of the farm, who do you think would win?
I mean,
just the children, so not Mama, not Krone.
Yeah.
Nas, you've been playing a lot. Oh, actually, Jack. Yes.
Are they bloodlusted?
Yes. No. So they are the way they are now.
Okay, so but like all of them are completely willing to kill each other.
Yeah, are they hung up about like killing each other or not? Is this just about capabilities?
If they actually have to killing each other, then Emma easy is my call.
Really? Okay,
yeah.
so like
my money is on Emma.
This is how they are right now, and then they know with 100% certainty that they cannot escape this without killing someone.
Okay,
they've like accepted, because I don't know, I feel like
they're not like blood. Like Emma isn't suddenly like a psychopath. Like doesn't have a psychopath of like super clouded or whatever. Like she's Emma, and she's just in a situation where she cannot escape unless she's the last one alive.
That is a different question, I feel like.
I feel like if they had to first accept that they were going to kill each other, I think Norman would win, because I think he would be the first. He would be one of the quickest to accept he had to kill them and be willing to do it. That's what I think. I think Norman would win because he would have that head start advantage of like kind of cold hard ruthlessness. But if you're talking about just pure capabilities, I kind of want to choose between Phil, because I don't know.
The Overlord Phil!
Yeah, maybe like Ray, because he's both smart and athletically capable. Like Norman, like he was frail as a kid, right? So while he would have kind of the ruthlessness advantage, it would be like a head start. But if if they don't have the head start and they're all like willing to kill each other, I think it would be Ray, because he's like strategic and physically capable. Even if he's not as physically capable as like Emma, I don't know.
So see, my argument is that they're all really, really smart. Like, you forget how smart Emma is because Norman and Ray are around her all the time and she's dumber than they are. But like, if you get rid of Emma's empathy, which is a lot of what like holds her back a lot of the time, like she's going to be breaking heads, and she is intelligent. Like the way that, remember in that initial game of tag when like Norman fucks her over and wins? That's because she feels empathy for him. Otherwise, she would have fucking wrecked that kid. Like,
that's true. That's a good point.
I don't know. So like, I think it comes down to like whether Emma would be ruthless. Otherwise, like, I don't know. If they have to like actually get over their qualms with like killing each other, though, I might be on Team Ray though. But
I was thinking, first of all, we have to pay respects to our overlord Phil and say that.
Right, of course.
He's smart. And he could hide. What if he like played dead or something? I don't know. I'm just like imagining some sort of scenario where like he's able to like pull an underdog win. That'd be cool.
And he's also really small, so it's hard to find him too.
He's the dude.
But if
he's the dude in the battle royale that just like camps on the outsides of the map all game.
Oh, he's a bushy boy.
When the ring closes in, he goes in for the kill on the last squad.
Oh yeah. Nos, as someone who also plays a lot of battle royale, who do you think would win?
Oh man, this is hard actually. I mean, my initial thought was Don because he hit those sick punches on.
He hit him out of nowhere though.
Yeah, they were.
He didn't even let
punches.
Say he wanted to see them grit those teeth.
Yeah, I don't know. I do think it'd probably be Emma, though. She seems like the most reasonable. If like once she does like kind of I guess abandon that empathy because well, I don't know. It's hard to say that she would because she'd probably want like Norman or Ray to live over her.
Right.
But
right. And
I could see Norman killing himself for Emma to let her out. Do like a PETA Katniss kind of thing.
Yeah. I could also see Emma killing herself. So like if they are not just like empathy removed, like I'm not like pulling for Emma so much, but just in terms of like pure capabilities, I'm kind of on her team there.
Yeah.
I think it would be Ray, just because I feel like Norman would get too cocky, kind of like when he was like, "Oh yeah, Ray, I know you're the informant," and he kind of didn't have a backup plan at like what to do once that was revealed.
Yeah,
right.
He was just like,
"Well, not that we know of, because he didn't need it."
True, but like Ray just kind of wrested control, even though Norman should have had the upper hand there.
So, right, that makes sense.
But yeah, so with that in mind, this has been a podcast, man.
That it has. We've had a whole journey together, my dudes.
Yeah. Yes, and as Moz likes to point out from chat, Tag is a battle royale. It's a team-based battle royale, I guess, in a sense. But yeah, it's been a journey. Thank you again so much to Nos and Jack for tuning in, tuning in and for coming on to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course, and Jack, Nas, 17, and I, and many others of the podcast are in Discord that you can find a link to down below in the Spoilers Promise Neverweekly Neverland channel. That is anime only spoilers, so no worries about that. We will not be promising that we'll have these episodes once again 8 p.m. every week. In fact, after last week we had some technical issues there. It's a good thing we never promised that, but we will try to get these out every week. Be sure to subscribe to our channel and follow us on Twitter. Those are the two places where we let people know of the link beforehand so that you can always tune in as soon as it drops. And you can always
the Discord, of course.
Yes, and the Discord, of course. And you can always listen to these if you can't make it out at 8 p.m. Eastern when these are usually dropped and live. You can always listen to them afterwards on YouTube, Simplecast, iTunes, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. So with that in mind, I've been Fate Steel Taylor. Next week, we will hopefully have Shaking807 back from foster homes because that's where we sent them, right? Right, Don and Gilda? Right. Shaw's actually in the battle royale. She will remain the victor. She will have eaten Phil and bested Phil and probably be back in here.
Or would she want her favorite characters to win? That's the question she will answer next week.
On Dragon Ball Neverweekly. Thank you so much, guys. Have a good night.